Ever since the first Predator set foot on Earth in the Guatemalan jungle in 1987, the franchise has been filled with soldiers, hunters, police officers, and warriors who have faced these alien creatures, and very few live to tell the tale. However, the recent film Predator: Killer of Killers reveals that the jungle hunter was not in fact the first Yautja to arrive on our planet. This race of hunters had been visiting us for centuries, not only to carry out their personal hunts, but also to select and gather the deadliest human warriors who managed to survive their challenges. Men and women from different eras, cultures, and corners of the world who not only face predators, but live to tell the story. It's important to clarify that this video is part of a series in which I'll explore all the protagonists from the Predator films, including Alien vs. Predator, and what happened to them afterward, all being told in chronological order. So without further ado, let's begin. To open this list, we begin with Ursa, a Viking warrior. But long before she was locked in a hibernation capsule aboard an alien ship, Ursa was already a formidable warrior. Daughter of the mighty Earl Einar of Ladoga, she was born into a world of blood, ice, and war in the 9th century. As a child, she witnessed her father fall in battle at the hands of the ruthless warlord Zoran. But the true trauma came later. To survive, she was forced to take her own father's life. Einar handed her a dagger and made her promise to one day avenge him. That day, a warrior was born. Over the years, Ursa became more than just a Viking. She came to be known as the Queen of the Sea, Valkyrie of the North, and Shield Maiden. She led her own clan and raised her son Anders in the shadow of vengeance. Her weapons were highly unique, 2 broken shields with steel edges as sharp as any sword. For her battles were not fought for gold, but for honor and blood. In 841 AD, she led a series of raids that culminated in the massacre of a Krivich village, where she discovered the location of Zoran's stronghold. At that point, her son was not yet ready to fulfill his mother's revenge, but Ursa was. Upon reaching Zoran's fortress, she unleashed all her fury and carved her way through enemy warriors with her bladed shields, until she came face to face with her father's killer. When Zoran recognized her, he tried to humiliate her, calling her a coward for not having fought as a child. But he had no time for more words, as Anders beheaded him with his spear, sealing their family's vengeance. Throughout this entire video, a pattern keeps repeating itself. Every human who survives an encounter with the Yautja gains access to knowledge they were never meant to have. They see too much, they learn too much, and sooner or later that exposure begins to shape their decisions, their behavior, and sometimes the world around them. Because the real danger of the Yautja was never just their physical strength. It was access. Access to hidden worlds, access to advanced technology, and access to knowledge that goes far beyond what any human can even imagine. And that's where this stops being just science fiction. I mean, think about it. Have you ever wondered what platforms like ChatGPT or Claude are actually doing with your conversations? Sure, we all know Alexa listens to us and pushes product recommendations. Meta retargets us based on everything we click. But AI platforms? We give them our thoughts, dreams, sensitive questions, even business ideas, all under the assumption that it's just between us and the machine. But it's not. What you share often gets tied to your identity, and in many cases, sold off to third parties, or even handed to governments. In fact, ChatGPT currently has the former director of the NSA on its board. It took us way too long to realize what social media companies were doing with our data in the last decade. Are we about to make the same mistake with AI? Honestly? This kind of thing makes me uncomfortable. But let's face it, AI is also incredibly useful. That's why I started using Venice AI, which is also sponsoring today's video. Venice is a generative AI platform built with privacy in mind. It's completely private and permissionless. No identity tracking, no hidden censorship, and absolutely no data harvesting. For example, try asking other AIs to generate an image of soldiers fighting in Ukraine or something as simple as a King Charles Spaniel. You might get blocked or denied. But with Venice.ai, you're in control. No restrictions, no judgment. I personally love their proclam, especially for these features. Uploading PDFs and getting summaries. turning off safe mode for full creative freedom. Modifying the system prompts itself to fine-tune how the AI responds. High limits on text and images, so you're not constantly capped. Venice runs directly in your browser. No installs, no downloads, and your entire chat history is stored only locally on your device. Use my custom link, venice.ai/PulsaStart, and don't forget to apply the code PulsaStart for 20% off the Pro plan. If you're someone who values privacy but still wants powerful, uncensored AI, this is the best option I've found. Thank you, and let's go back to today's video. However, that act was only the beginning of a new battle. Suddenly, an invisible shockwave blasted through the throne room, and from the shadows emerged a new enemy, a brutal Yautja, armed with advanced technology. In seconds, it slaughtered the Viking warriors. Only Ursa survived long enough to face it. Her son managed to wound the creature before being trapped under rubble, and it was Ursa who engaged the predator in combat. Though she survived a blow from its weapon, one of her shields was destroyed, and she was thrown into a frozen lake. Ursa plunged beneath the ice, but she did not give up. There, she found an air pocket and waited, hidden beneath the surface. When the creature searched for her, she emerged, lured it into a trap with an anchor, and managed to break the ice, dragging both of them into the depths. Even underwater, she kept fighting until the predator tried to use its kinetic weapon again, but Ursa shielded herself with what remained of her shield, and the shockwave impaled the predator against the anchor, as well as launching Ursa out of the water, having surfaced victorious. However, upon returning to the fortress, she found her son Anders gravely wounded. He died in her arms, but not before confirming that his mother had defeated the monster. Still, this was not her final battle. The Yautja captured her and placed her in a hibernation capsule. When she awoke, she was inside a cell with two other men, Kenji, a ninja warrior, and Torres, a pilot. They were forced to fight one another, and the predators released a massive creature known as the Backbiter, a beast with a mouth on the back of its head. Torres was swallowed, but survived. Ursa and Kenji fought the monster together, and then turned their fury on the lead Yautja, attacking with everything they had. This massive predator was named by Ursa as the Grendel King. To fight, she fashioned a piece of metal into an improvised shield. After disabling their explosive collars and hijacking a ship, Ursa once again risked everything. When a chain held a ship they were trying to escape in, she threw herself back into the fight and destroyed the anchor, allowing Torres and Kenji to escape. Her sacrifice ensured their freedom. But once again, the Yautja captured her and sealed her into another cryogenic sleep. In feudal Japan, honor, blood, and succession defined a man's destiny. Kenji, the son of a powerful warlord, grew up within the walls of a castle, training alongside his brother Kiyoshi, dreaming of days of glory. But that dream shattered in the year 1609, when their own father forced them to fight to the death for the right to inherit his legacy. Kenji refused to raise his sword against his brother, and that decision would mark the rest of his life. Fearing their father's disappointment, Kiyoshi attacked and wounded him, claiming the throne for himself. Humiliated and betrayed, Kenji fled. For 20 years, he vanished from the world. In secret, he trained and lived as a peasant, but in the shadows, he forced himself into a lethal ninja. When his father died in 1629, Kenji returned to the castle, determined to finally confront his brother. He infiltrated the fortress unseen, but the guards eventually detected him. Even so, he defeated them one by one until he reached the main hall. There, Kenji and Kiyoshi faced each other in a brutal duel. Kenji emerged victorious, mirroring the wound his brother had once inflicted on him years before, but chose to spare his life. It was then that a weakened railing gave way, and Kiyoshi fell from the castle. Despite the fall, that was not truly the end for Kiyoshi. From the shadows, a new threat appeared. A predator had been watching the entire time. Kenji used smoke bombs to escape, ran across the rooftops, and fell into the river. Badly wounded, he dragged himself to shore, where he found Kiyoshi still alive. But before he could react, the predator stabbed his brother. In that moment, the two siblings reunited one final time and fought the creature together. They managed to defeat it with cunning and determination. Kiyoshi died shortly after, but not before reconciling with Kenji. Just like Ursa, the Yautja captured Kenji and placed him into cryogenic hibernation. Years later, he awoke inside a cell, now a prisoner of the Yautja, alongside Ursa and Torres. Though they did not speak the same language, they all understood the same message. They would be forced to fight to the death in a gladiator-style arena. Kenji was armed with a katana and was made to fight Ursa, but when Torres was swallowed by a monstrous creature, they were forced to cooperate to survive. That battle forged a mutual respect between them. Soon, they attempted to escape, and Kenji and Ursa faced off against the Predator leader hand to hand, while Torres activated the ship. The battle was fierce and bloody. Though they managed to wound the massive Grendel King, he quickly overpowered them with ease, forcing them to flee. Just as they were about to escape, the Yautja leader threw a spear and tore off Kenji's right arm. While trying to leave the planet, the Predators shot a harpoon-like projectile attached to a chain to prevent the ship from launching, and Ursa was forced to leave the ship to destroy the anchoring mechanism from the outside, allowing the ship to launch. Kenji, bleeding and now with one arm, tied off his stump and smiled, because he had found a new clan and a new brother. Naru was raised on the plains of North America by the Comanche tribe. A healer by tradition, but a hunter by nature. Naru grew up in the shadow of the great hunters of her tribe, bound by the limiting expectations of a culture that saw her as a woman with no place in the hunt. But what others didn't know was that Naru had a true gift as a warrior. In 1719, when she saw an object streak across the sky during a storm, Naru believed it to be the Thunderbird, a mythical sign signaling that she was ready to face her Kutamia, the rite of passage to become a hunter. In truth, the sign was the ship of the pharaoh Yautja, who had come to Earth in search of worthy opponents. From that moment on, Naru stopped trying to convince her tribe and started proving herself through action. During the hunt for a lion that had injured a member of the group, Naru already suspected that something more dangerous had scared it off. During the chase, she was attacked and knocked unconscious, waking later to discover that her brother Tabe had killed the lion and been named war chief. Though frustrated, Naru did not give up. She set out on her own, tracking footprints, avoiding traps, and witnessing firsthand how the predator killed a bear with its bare hands. Even knowing she faced an unknown and powerful threat, she pressed forward. She was eventually captured by French colonizers, who had also been attacked by the Yautja. They tied her to a tree alongside her brother, intending to use them as bait, and that's when Naru realized something crucial. The predator only attacked what it perceived as a threat. With this insight, Naru began to plan her counterattack. She freed her brother, used medicinal herbs to hide her body heat, learned to operate a pistol, and studied how the Yautja used its technology. Tabe died fighting bravely, giving Naru the time she needed to escape and prepare. Naru awaited the predator in a battlefield of her choosing. Using traps, hunting tactics, and even the predator's own mask, she executed her plan. With precision, patience, and a single well-placed shot, she managed to kill the pharaoh Yautja, causing its own targeting system to drive a projectile through its skull. The next day she returned to her tribe with her dog Seri, the predator's severed head, and Raphael Adelini's pistol in hand. Naru was declared war chief. Later, in Predator Killer of Killers, it is revealed that Naru was captured by the Yautja. Her victory had not gone unnoticed, and she was placed in a cryogenic chamber, one of the few humans ever to have defeated a predator in combat.
We just shot down the last
Last but not least, we have John J. Torres, a young mechanic with a noble heart, raised in the countryside alongside his father. When the United States entered World War II, Torres was recruited as a naval pilot. He wasn't a technical genius, but he had an intense passion for flying. In 1942, while the military patrolled the Atlantic, and Torres worked on repairs for his F-4F Wildcat, nicknamed Bullet, his squadron was attacked by something they had never encountered before, an alien ship equipped with harpoons, nets, and cloaking technology, piloted by a predator. Only one survivor managed to return, his fuselage pierced by one of these harpoons. Torres examined the projectile and immediately knew it wasn't human. Without hesitation, he took off in his damaged plane to warn the others. But by the time he arrived, the enemy was already there. One by one, the planes fell. Alongside Captain Vandy, Torres discovered that the Yautja was tracking them through their heat signatures. With that in mind, they ascended high enough to freeze their engines, planning to ambush the alien ship from above. Vandy sacrificed himself to give Torres one last shot. Torres came up with a plan and dove straight down at high speed, tricking the creature and crashing his own plane into the alien ship. The explosion brought the Yautja down and saved the rest of the squadron. Torres had accomplished the impossible and returned home a hero. After the war, back at his workshop, Torres was abducted by another Yautja ship and placed into cryogenic stasis. Years later, he awoke in a cell alongside Kenji and Ursa. The Yautja had now gathered 3 formidable warriors from different eras for a fight to the death. However, despite being the weakest of the 3, Torres managed to devise a plan, steal a Yautja ship, and escape with Kenji, leaving Ursa behind, with the predators once again hunting them. In the end, Ursa was recaptured. Naru remains frozen, and Kenji and Torres are on the run in an alien world. But if we've learned anything, it's that these humans won't give up easily. Moreover, Naru's return opens the door for a potential sequel. Major Alan Schaefer, also known as Dutch, was the kind of man who only knew how to live in combat. A former Green Beret, Dutch led an elite Black Ops rescue team and was a seasoned veteran of multiple conflicts throughout Asia and Central America. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a guerrilla warfare expert who had operated in Da Nang in Cambodia during and after the Vietnam War. In 1987, he was hired by the CIA for a rescue mission deep in the Guatemalan jungle. His objective was to find a group of diplomats allegedly kidnapped by guerrillas. But what he found there was something no one on Earth was prepared to face. One by one, his team members were killed by an invisible, ruthless, and methodical creature. This enemy wasn't human. It was an alien, a hunter killing for sport. Wounded, weaponless, and alone, Dutch became one of the few humans in history to confront and defeat a predator using nothing but his intellect, combat training, and pure survival instinct. In the end, he was the last man standing. He built traps with his bare hands and lured the creature into a final showdown. The predator nearly killed him, but Dutch's last-ditch trap, a suspended log rigged with a rope, crushed the alien just in time. Without it, he would have died. In the final moments, Dutch faced the mortally wounded Yautja. But instead of accepting defeat, the creature activated its self-destructive ice, forcing Dutch to run for his life once again. Even in death, the predator almost took him with it. After being rescued from the jungle, Dutch and a woman named Anna were the only survivors of the incident. They were interrogated extensively by the OWLF, or the Otherworld Lifeforms Program, a secret organization that had been tracking evidence of the Yautja for years. Both Dutch and Anna were interviewed multiple times. But as weeks passed, Dutch began showing signs of illness, symptoms similar to radiation exposure, likely caused by his proximity to the predator's self-destruction. While recovering in the hospital, Dutch was visited repeatedly by Peter Keyes, a lead OWLF agent. Keyes interrogated him relentlessly, and over time, a strange bond formed between them, part mutual respect, part reluctant trust. But then, Dutch vanished. One day, without a trace, he escaped the hospital and disappeared. Yet his story didn't end there. In fact, it was just beginning. The Yautja remembered him. The jungle hunter's hunt logs were sent back to Yautja Prime by its ship, and there Dutch's name gained notoriety. He wasn't just seen as prey, but as a formidable warrior. So much so that one particular hunter, the city hunter, who would later arrive in Los Angeles, became obsessed with him. So what had Dutch been doing all that time? By 1991, he had adopted a new identity, posing as a writer interested in local legends about the demon who makes trophies of men. He lived across several Central American countries, listening to exaggerated or fabricated tales. but always searching for patterns, details that matched what he experienced in the jungle. That's when he became convinced that these aliens had been visiting Earth for centuries. It's important to note that Dutch's health had deteriorated severely due to radiation sickness. He had lost a significant amount of weight, and his condition remained fragile. Still, he kept searching for answers, for a way to fight back, or maybe for a reason to keep going. But Dutch's spirit remained unbroken. In 1996, he resurfaced with renewed energy and founded a private military company that, on the surface, specialized in rescue missions, but in reality served a far more dangerous purpose. It was bait. Dutch was recruiting soldiers with dark pasts, men with nothing to lose, those he deemed useful to attract Yautja hunters. He admitted it himself, coldly. They were just decoys. Just as Dylan had used Dutch's team years earlier, Dutch was now doing the same. That same year, his team accepted a mission in the Congo where contact had been lost with an advanced military outpost. Upon arrival, they discovered skinned, hanging corpses. Dutch knew immediately. The hunters had returned, and he had been waiting for this moment. But just as the creature revealed itself, a stray bullet struck a crate of RPGs, triggering a violent explosion. Dutch survived, but both his team and the Yautja were consumed in the fire. Still, he managed to recover pieces of alien technology and escape before reinforcements arrived. By 1997, back in the United States, he caught wind of a gang war erupting in Los Angeles, coupled with an intense heat wave. He knew the signs. These were perfect hunting conditions, and so Dutch went straight to the epicenter. But once again, he arrived too late. Detective Mike Harrigan had already faced and defeated the city hunter. In his obsession to keep pursuing the Yautja, Dutch let his guard down and was captured by the OWLF. Thanks to his old connection with Peter Keyes, he managed to negotiate his release, but only after handing over the predator tech he'd recovered. When he learned that Keyes had died at the hands of the city hunter, Dutch made a new deal with the OWLF. They would work together, not for them, but with them. Dutch would bring the experience, and they'd bring the resources. And thus, a new chapter began. Over the following years, Dutch became even more effective. By 2008, he had been working alongside the OWLF for years, tracking Yautja and recovering their technology. On one of his final missions while pursuing a female Yautja in Laos, Dutch was ambushed. The huntress ensnared him with a net gun, its mesh tightening and cutting deep into his skin. Dutch believed that was the end. After all, he had been doing this for more than 2 decades. But to his surprise, she let him go. She didn't kill him. She simply looked at him and vanished into the jungle. Dutch didn't know why, but he had a theory. She recognized him. She knew exactly who he was. The net left him with a permanent grid-like scar across his face, but that didn't stop him. By 2025, at 78 years old, Dutch was still fighting. After being seriously wounded in another predator encounter, he agreed to undergo an experimental treatment that fused his DNA with that of a Yautja. The results were successful. Dutch returned to active duty, now stronger than ever, working alongside Sean Keyes, the son of Peter Keyes, who had survived the events of Project Stargazer. Dutch described Sean as a brilliant scientist and claimed that the new OWLF was bigger and more prepared than ever before. But he also shared a troubling warning. In recent years, predator encounters had tripled, and that deeply concerned him. Dutch feared that if the Yautja continued to see humanity as a challenge, then sooner or later, they wouldn't come just to hunt for sport. They would come to invade. And that's where Dutch's story ends, at least for now. Mike Harrigan wasn't an elite soldier or a jungle survival expert. He was a Los Angeles police detective, forged in the streets, with nearly 20 years of service in a record marked by violence, determination, and an obsession with justice, no matter the cost. Before the events of Predator 2, Harrigan was already a local legend. Alongside his partner and best friend Danny Archuleta, he had spent his career taking down crime using unorthodox but effective methods. Though his superiors considered him impulsive and aggressive, his record spoke for itself. 10 commendations for bravery, more felony arrests than any other LAPD officer, and a reputation feared by criminals. But a life of constant war had taken its toll. It cost him his marriage and several personal relationships. Everything changed in 1997 during a brutal gang war between Colombian and Jamaican cartels. Suddenly, a new threat emerged: mutilated bodies, victims skinned alive, and weapons no one recognized. At first, Harrigan believed it was the work of a cartel assassin, but it didn't take long before he realized something far worse was hunting them. When his friend Danny was murdered, the investigation became personal. Harrigan didn't just want answers anymore, he wanted revenge. In his pursuit, Harrigan crossed paths with Peter Keyes, who was secretly working for the OWLF and attempting to capture the alien killer alive, hiding the truth from the rest of the police force. Harrigan didn't trust him, and as the city hunter began killing off his squad one by one, Harrigan decided he would stop it alone, regardless of whether the enemy was human or not. He chased the creature through the subway, rooftops, high-rises, and eventually faced it hand-to-hand deep beneath the city. Finally, aboard the Yautja's ship, Harrigan used his wits and the Predator's own smart disc to kill it. It was a brutal fight, and just when it seemed his life was over, surrounded by a whole group of Yautja, something unexpected happened. They let him live. The group's elder, Greyback, handed him an ancient relic, Raphael Adelini's flintlock pistol, a symbol of respect for having defeated one of their own with honor. Harrigan didn't just survive, he earned the respect of one of the most revered predators. After this encounter, Harrigan faded into silent legend. He officially retired in 2022 after 40 years of service. But his story didn't end there. Years later in Rio de Janeiro, Harrigan once again came face to face with a predator. This time a rogue, one of the bad bloods hunted by its own kind. And once again, Harrigan survived. He witnessed how the creature was ultimately captured by other Yautja, and in that moment, understood something profound. His name was still remembered. But the most shocking revelation came later. In the recent film Predator: Killer of Killers, during the final sequence, we see Ursa being transported inside a cryogenic capsule by the predators. The camera lingers and reveals something truly fascinating: a massive chamber filled with hibernation pods. Some contain alien creatures, and others humans. Among them, frozen in stasis, is none other than Naru, the Comanche warrior who defeated the feral predator in Prey. And that's not all. Concept artist Michael Blackbear Wandy, who worked on the film's visual development, recently revealed that concept art was also created showing Mike Harrigan inside one of those capsules, right next to Naru. This strongly implies one thing: every human who has ever defeated a predator is eventually captured by the Yautja and kept in stasis. Perhaps as a trophy, or perhaps as a future combatant. This revelation recontextualizes the entire saga. From Naru to Dutch, including Harrigan, Royce, and more, they could all still be alive, frozen, and waiting their turn to fight again. Royce wasn't always the cold-blooded mercenary we saw dropped into the alien jungle. Long before waking up on that strange planet, he was a highly trained elite soldier in the US military. Specializing in extraction operations in conflict zones, Royce was efficient, methodical, and lethal. But everything changed in the Philippines. During what was supposed to be a routine mission, bad intel led Royce to destroy a building believed to house terrorists. The emotional fallout was immediate and devastating, because what he didn't know and never dared say out loud was that in the basement of that building, there was a school full of women and children. That moment would haunt him forever, though he would never admit it. After the Philippines, his reputation changed. From disciplined soldier to emotionless executioner, that persona made him attractive to the kind of employers who operated in the shadows. Powerful people with no morals. Royce became a weapon for hire, answering only to the highest bidder. That's how he ended up in Africa, under the scorching sun, surrounded by the stench of blood, dust, and corruption. This time the job came from a general who controlled a war-torn region. The objective? Eliminate rebel leader Yautja and his entire militia. Royce agreed, but only if he got 2/3 of the payment up front. He didn't trust men in uniform, and he trusted even less those who hired him to do their dirty work. He knew betrayal was inevitable. In the refugee camp, Royce watched the chaos unfold with cold detachment. Women being beaten, children crying for food, but none of it moved him anymore. When he met Bapoto, the general's envoy, he immediately knew it was a setup. They tried to distract him with imported brandy and tropical fruit, as if that could mask their corruption. But Royce saw through it. He knew Bapoto had been sent not just to assist him, but to kill him once the job was done. So he struck first, quick, clean, and without hesitation. He left Bapoto's body behind in the jungle, and 3 days later, Royce arrived at the rebel village where Kuti was hiding. From a ridge, he watched silently, and among the armed men below, he recognized someone. Travis, a Western mercenary he'd once served with in Pakistan. And with that, Royce understood the situation perfectly. The rebels had also hired killers, because in a world like his, loyalty means nothing. Everything has a price. At this point, Royce executed his plan with surgical precision. He shot one of Kuti's men to simulate an external attack, which triggered the rest of the group to abandon the camp in a rush. Then Royce infiltrated the village, sabotaged the vehicles, planted explosives, and set the huts on fire. It was a surgical strike disguised as a massacre, designed to sow chaos and confusion. Eventually, he found Kuti inside his cabin. The rebel tried to justify himself with a speech about morality and good and evil, but Royce cut him off mid-sentence with a bullet, and that's when everything changed. A mother appeared, holding her baby in her arms. Reflexively, Royce fired and hit her. The memory of the Philippines came back like a sledgehammer to the chest. But this time, he had a chance to redeem himself, and he didn't take it. When Travis and his men returned to the camp, Royce used the wounded woman and her child as bait. One by one, he lured the mercenaries into ambushes and killed them, all except for Travis. He chased him down to the beach where a jeep was waiting, its driver already dead. Royce said nothing. Travis looked at him and muttered, "You're the villain in this story, man." To which Royce, cold and detached, replied, "I'm the villain in every story," and then shot him without hesitation. The mission was over, but what Royce didn't know was that someone had been watching him the entire time. A Yautja known as Tracker had been observing from the jungle. He'd seen Royce's brutality, his cunning, and, most of all, his raw will to survive. To the predators, Royce wasn't a monster. He was a challenge. That's why, later that night, he was ambushed and taken. Sergeant Major Isabelle Abigail Nissenbaum was an elite sniper in the Israeli military. From a very young age, she demonstrated an unusual gift, the ability to go unnoticed, to move in silence, and to remain utterly calm even in the heart of chaos. In the convent where she was raised, the nuns feared her for her eerie stillness. To her classmates, she simply didn't exist. She was invisible, but that invisibility wasn't a curse. It was the beginning of her training. That gift would become a weapon. Because of this, her talent was quickly recognized, and she was recruited into special forces. Isabelle was molded into what her government needed most: a ghost, a deadly shadow gliding through the foliage without leaving a trace, a precise, silent, lethal executor. Over time, her name became known in certain military circles, and she was decorated as her missions piled up. But Isabelle never saw herself as a hero. She carried the weight of irreparable decisions, scars that couldn't be seen but never faded. One of them came during a mission in Afghanistan, where she took out a target, a woman who was holding her small child in her arms. In another operation, she accidentally killed an ally in a friendly fire incident. These events left a deep mark on her soul, because as a religious woman, she believed her actions had condemned her to eternal damnation. And yet, she kept going. Later, she was deployed to Guatemala alongside her teammate Archuleta, who may have been a relative of Danny Archuleta from Predator 2. Their mission: track down a group of insurgents. Officially, it was a routine neutralization operation. Unofficially, they were looking for evidence related to a creature that, according to rumors, had wiped out an entire elite squad in that same jungle back in 1987. Isabelle had heard the stories. An invisible entity, an alien hunter, something not human. They called it a soulless demon. For her, this wasn't just another job. It was a personal obsession. But that obsession came at a cost. They let their guard down, and Archuleta was captured. Isabelle found them. She had the enemy in her sights. She could have pulled the trigger. She could have saved him. But she didn't. She analyzed the terrain, calculated the risks, and hesitated. Too many enemies. Too much noise. A cold, rational, and condemning decision. Because of that choice, she was forced to watch her teammate be executed, and she never forgave herself. Following that failure, she was reassigned. Her next target, Alvaro Otti, a former Guatemalan Kaibil turned trafficker, not just of drugs, but of people. The trail led her once more into the Guatemalan jungle, this time with a small strike team. Her precision was essential. She moved like a phantom, eliminating targets quickly and efficiently. But what she didn't know was that from the treetops, something else was watching. Something that found her. Fascinating. One by one, her team was wiped out. Her comrade Bulla was used as bait to lure her out. And when the moment was right, they took her. Not to kill her, not yet, but to take her with them. Royce and Isabelle were abducted alongside other killers, soldiers, and criminals, and dropped into an alien jungle with no idea they were on the game preserve planet, a hunting ground used by a faction of Yautja known as the Super Predators. Together, they managed to survive the deadly planet, outwitting and outlasting these dangerous hunters one by one, including their brutal leader, Berserker, and they came out alive. At the end of the movie, we see them holding each other, looking up as new parachutes fall from the sky. These new arrivals made one thing clear: the cycle was repeating. But Royce was no longer just a survivor. He had become a predator himself, and he was ready to hunt. Weeks after their initial battle on the Super Predator planet, Royce was still surviving however he could. He hunted relentlessly, tracking the various creatures the Yautja released for their twisted sport, and scavenged every bit of technology he could to stay alive. But in the back of his mind, a thought haunted him: regret. He regretted going back for Isabelle at the end of the 2010 film. At this point, Royce believed that if he continued like this, he'd end up just like Nolan, completely alone and mentally shattered. Ironically, that decision, not boarding the ship that could have taken him home in order to save Isabelle, was what actually saved his life. Because what he didn't know was that Berserker had triggered the ship's self-destruct sequence. Royce assumed the ship had simply left without him. As time passed, Royce began to form a deeper bond with Isabelle, who he now simply called Izzy. But true to his nature, he pulled away again, returning to his solitary hunts. During one of those expeditions, he was badly injured, and when he stumbled back to their shelter, he collapsed, unconscious, for days. Isabelle stayed by his side the entire time, healing his wounds, maintaining the camp, and protecting him. Then something unexpected happened. A Yautja appeared, but not to kill them. Instead, it left behind a box filled with hunting gear customized for Royce. A plasma caster, armor, wrist blades, all tailored specifically for him. But the real challenge came soon after. They were ambushed by a mutated Yautja, a towering beast with 4 arms. Royce was wounded during the fight, but this time he didn't face the monster alone. He fought side by side with Isabelle, and together they brought it down. It was in that moment that both understood. The only way to survive was as a team. Eventually, Royce and Isabelle discovered the journal of another human survivor, a sniper named Orion, who had managed to gain the respect of the Yautja and even trained a group of them. That information helped them better understand their hunters and to begin planning an escape. But everything changed when Royce used the vision mode in his armor to follow a heat trail that led to a Yautja landing site. There, he found 2 ships, a large transport vessel and a smaller scout craft. He brought Isabelle with him, and when they arrived, she believed they would finally escape using the smaller ship. But Royce had other plans. There, he confessed to her that he didn't want to leave. Not yet. He wanted to stay. He wanted to face the predators directly. One last time. Isabelle tried to make him see reason. She begged Royce to leave with her, to stop risking his life, that it wasn't worth it. But Royce had already made up his mind. In his eyes, the gift the Yautja had left for him wasn't just a sign of respect. It was a challenge, a reminder that he still had something to prove. Royce activated the larger ship and departed, leaving Isabelle with the smaller one. Luckily, thanks to the adjustments Royce had made, the ship recognized Isabelle as if she were one of the Yautja and allowed her to take off. And so she managed to return to Earth alone. After escaping the game-preserved planet, Isabelle accomplished something that very few ever have, piloting a Yautja ship back to Earth. She was intercepted not long after re-entry and detained at a secret facility. The interrogators quickly admitted that they had no jurisdiction to hold her. They didn't even understand how she had managed to pilot an alien craft. But they were desperate for answers. Now officially listed as absent without leave by her own government, Isabelle was questioned by members of an international special task force investigating the Yautja threat, what we know as the OWLF. And she told them everything. How she had been abducted during a mission, how she woke up falling from the sky with an automatically deploying parachute, and how she ended up among a group of assassins, mercenaries, and soldiers from across the world. All of them had one thing in common. They were killing machines. Isabelle explained how she survived, how Royce, a lone pragmatic mercenary, became her ally, and how in the end, he chose to stay behind. During her testimony, Isabelle was clear. She didn't admire the Yautja, but she did understand their brutal logic. She also admitted that piloting their ship was a mix of instinct, military training, trial and error, and faith. Many of the ship's interfaces used icons and basic holograms, almost as if the hunters themselves didn't fully understand how the technology worked. They only knew how to use it. This ties into the ancient history of the predators. Long ago, they were known as the Hish, a race enslaved by the Amengi, an insectoid species that conquered planets. With the help of their leader Kaio, the Hish rebelled against the Amengi, overthrew them, and took their technology. That's how the predators became an interstellar species. In the end, Isabelle spent weeks alone on that ship, rationing supplies, sleeping among alien systems, until Earth finally appeared, vast and blue, in her window. Her return was a miracle, but for many it was also an invaluable opportunity. The OWLF agents offered her a place in their international unit tasked with hunting predators. She declined, but not completely. She kept their card and said she'd think about it. Before facing two of the deadliest creatures in the universe, Alexa, or Lex Woods, had already achieved one of the most difficult feats a person can accomplish. She was the youngest woman to ever summit Mount Everest without the use of supplemental oxygen. An explorer by vocation and an environmentalist by conviction, Lex was also the daughter of a renowned mountaineer. She built her reputation leading extreme expeditions across the Arctic and the Himalayas, and actively collaborated with environmental conservation groups. Lex was also a respected figure within the explorer community, not just for her courage, but for her discipline and leadership under the most extreme conditions. In 2004, while climbing the Khumbu Glacier in Nepal, she was approached by Max Stafford, a representative from Whalen Industries. He offered her a job guiding an expedition to Bouvet Island, where a mysterious heat signature had been detected beneath the ice. At first, Lex refused. The mission was clearly underprepared, but after giving it some thought, she agreed under one condition: that strict safety protocols be followed. From the beginning, Lex proved she was more than just a guide. She was the only one who prioritized the safety of the team over the discovery itself. Once on site, the team uncovered a buried temple, a pyramid built by the Yautja. It was a hunting ground designed for young predators to complete their rite of passage by hunting xenomorphs, which they considered the ultimate prey due to their sheer danger. When the humans unknowingly activated the pyramid's defense systems, they disrupted the ritual, triggering the release of a Xenomorph Queen and all the aliens that had been kept in stasis. The majority of the crew was wiped out in a short time, but Lex showed immense courage and intelligence throughout. After her teammate, Sebastian, was captured, and their leader, Charles Whalen, was killed while protecting her from a predator, Lex was left completely alone. That's when she came face to face with the young Yautja, known as Scar, the last of the 3 predators sent to complete the hunt. Instead of killing her, Scar recognized that Lex was not a threat. In fact, after witnessing her kill a xenomorph and return his stolen tech, he saw her as a potential ally. As a gesture of respect, Scar armed her with a shield fashioned from a xenomorph's skull and a spear made from its tail. Thus began the alliance between the human and the Yautja. Together they infiltrated the hive to destroy the eggs and stop the alien queen. There, Lex found Sebastian, impregnated by a facehugger. She gave him a merciful death. Afterward, Scar activated his self-destruct device, and both he and Lex tried to escape the collapsing pyramid. Just before reaching the surface, they were intercepted again by more xenomorphs. Lex proved her worth once again. Scar was attacked from behind and lost his plasma caster, but Lex saved him with a precise harpoon shot. Thanks to that, they managed to escape on a sled. On the surface, Lex and Scar confronted the Queen, who had survived both the explosion and the ice collapse. In a brutal final battle, Lex fought side by side with the Predator. The Queen chased her to a water tower, and using a chain as an anchor, they brought the entire tower crashing into the ocean depths, finally defeating her. It's worth noting here that xenomorphs can survive even the most extreme conditions, including the vacuum of space. So it's very likely that this queen remains alive, frozen at the bottom of the sub-Antarctic Ocean. Though they won the battle, Scar succumbed to his wounds. As a final gesture of recognition, an elder predator and his clan, uncloaked, retrieved Scar's body, and upon seeing the clan mark branded into Lex's cheek, which she earned by killing 2 xenomorphs, the elder honored her as a warrior worthy of their species. He presented Lex with his ceremonial spear. The film ends with Lex alone, heading back toward a snow tractor to begin her return to the Whalen icebreaker. Although her story was never followed up in the sequels, we know from the official novelization that she survived and was rescued by her team. Years later, in the movie The Predator from 2018, we briefly see Lex's spear displayed inside Stargazer's lab, a strong indication that she was found and interrogated about the events in the pyramid and that her weapons were confiscated as evidence. Whether Lex willingly cooperated with Stargazer or was forced into silence remains unknown. Some fans speculate she may have become an advisor, much like Machiko Noguchi from the comics, a character who actually served as inspiration for the creation of Lex. Others believe she chose to disappear, staying completely off the grid. Regardless of what really happened, one thing is clear. Even though Alien vs. Predator isn't considered canon in either the Alien or Predator timelines, Lex Woods remains one of the most memorable, yet underrated characters in this crossover universe. Now moving on to the sequel, Alien vs. Predator Requiem. In this film, we actually get 4 survivors: the Howard brothers, Ricky and Dallas, along with young Molly and her mother, Kelly O'Brien, a member of the United States military. Unlike the isolated expedition to Bouvet Island, the xenomorph outbreak this time occurred in a very different setting, the small, ordinary American town of Gunnison, Colorado. The chaos unleashed by the xenomorphs was catastrophic, and the incident became one of the most devastating and heavily covered-up disasters in the Aliens vs. Predator universe. Out of the entire population, only 4 people made it out alive: brothers Dallas and Ricky Howard, soldier Kelly O'Brien, and her young daughter, Molly. Their story began in a very mundane way. Ricky was a pizza delivery boy who was frequently bullied by local thugs, and his older brother Dallas had just been released from prison for robbery. Kelly, meanwhile, had just returned home from a military deployment and was trying to reconnect with her daughter, who resented her for being away so long. None of them had the slightest idea that their town was about to become a war zone between deadly xenomorphs and a veteran predator known as Wolf. Everything started with the crash of a Yautja science vessel, which had unknowingly been infiltrated by a Predelian, a hybrid creature born from Scar's body. From that moment, the Xenomorph outbreak spread rapidly and silently across the town. Humanity didn't stand a chance. The local police force was overwhelmed in mere hours. The military was slow to respond, and by the time they finally did, it was already far too late. That same day, Ricky was attacked by the bullies who constantly harassed him, but he also became one of the first people to witness a chestburster in action. Later on, he met up with Jessie, his love interest, at the school swimming pool. It was there that a xenomorph appeared and killed several of the bullies in a brutal surprise attack. Dallas, who had tried to stay out of trouble, quickly realized how dire the situation was and took on the role of protector. Armed with whatever he could find, he led his small group of survivors to the town's gun shop. There, they joined up with Kelly, who, thanks to her military experience, quickly figured out what the military's true plan was. They weren't coming to rescue anyone. They were coming to wipe out all evidence with a tactical nuclear strike. Distrustful of the official instructions, Kelly proposed a different plan: head for the hospital, where a rescue helicopter was supposedly stationed. Only Dallas, Ricky, Jessie, and Molly chose to go with her. The hospital, already infested with xenomorphs, became the setting of their final, desperate attempt to escape. During the chaos, Jessie was accidentally killed by one of Wolf's throwing shurikens. Enraged, Ricky lashed out and attacked the predator, unaware that it wasn't actually his enemy. Not long after, the young man was seriously wounded by the Predelian, but he managed to survive. Kelly showed why she was a soldier, fiercely defending her daughter and the group with everything she had. Dallas found a measure of redemption too, helping to hold off the creatures long enough for the others to board the helicopter. Ricky, badly injured and barely able to stand, still managed to climb aboard just before the nuclear missile obliterated the city. The blast reached the helicopter, which crash-landed just outside the blast radius. When they regained consciousness, the 4 survivors were surrounded by military forces. The moment they handed over a Yautja weapon to the soldiers, it became clear that the government not only knew what had happened, they were already taking steps to cover everything up. Despite all the chaos, Ricky survived. Kelly comforted her daughter while the group was evacuated. Molly, who had lost her father that same night, found emotional refuge in her mother for the first time. Dallas and Kelly, both shaped by the horrors they'd endured, found an unexpected bond of mutual respect. After that, nothing more was ever heard from them. It's likely they were silenced, interrogated, or even forced into secrecy regarding the existence of the xenomorphs in the Yautja by the authorities. And finally, we come to Quinn McKenna, arguably the most unfortunate of them all. Not just because the film he appeared in is widely considered one of the weakest entries in the franchise, but because the story he led was a chaotic mix of satire, sci-fi, and wasted potential. Yet even within that disaster, McKenna achieved something few humans can claim. He survived a battle against the mutated predator. Before the events of the film, Quinn was a captain in the United States Army Rangers. Over the course of his career, he built a reputation as a lethal sniper, with over 14 confirmed kills. He served in 4 continents and was known for his efficiency, although, according to his ex-wife Emily, he was a disaster as a husband. From that marriage came Rory, a child on the autism spectrum with exceptional intelligence, especially in language and pattern recognition. Quinn was a broken soldier, divorced and emotionally distant, but still willing to protect those he loved. During a mission in Mexico against a drug cartel, McKenna witnessed the crash of a Yautja ship. He recovered a biomask and a gauntlet, but his team was quickly slaughtered by the fugitive predator. Despite this, he barely escaped, and determined to prevent the government from covering up what he found, he mailed the equipment directly to his ex-wife's house. The package ended up in the hands of Rory, triggering a new kind of hunt. Project Stargazer, a secret government division obsessed with predators, captured Quinn. They labeled him as unstable and threw him on the infamous Looney Bus, alongside a group of war-traumatized soldiers and individuals with psychiatric diagnoses. Together, they formed one of the most unlikely teams in the entire franchise. Broken soldiers who ended up facing not one, but two Yautja, including the massive upgraded Predator and two Yautja hounds. Amidst the chaos, Quinn was reunited with his son Rory and fought to protect him not only from the upgraded Predator, who wanted to take the boy due to his unique brain function, believing Rory was the next step in human evolution, but also from the Stargazer operatives hunting them down. The group fought valiantly, but one by one, Quinn's allies fell. In the end, only McKenna, Rory, and Dr. Casey Brackett survived. By the end of the movie, Quinn had taken charge of a restructured Stargazer division, now with a much clearer mission: to defend humanity against future Yautja threats. He now works alongside his son Rory, who has shown an incredible natural ability to understand alien technology. But the most important part was what the fugitive Predator had left behind for the humans: a biomechanical suit of armor. It featured dual plasma cannons, 3 independent laser sights, multi-mode thermal vision, active camouflage, retractable claws, and a fully English-readable interface, all stored within a single gauntlet. This presumably was meant to prepare humanity for an upcoming Yautja invasion. Strangely enough, this idea of an invasion was something the franchise never explored directly, but there's a fan theory that ties everything together, and it's worth discussing. The theory builds upon an idea hinted at by Dutch himself in audio logs found in the game Predator Hunting Grounds. According to him, each new hunting season was growing more intense, more frequent, and far more dangerous. Dutch realized this wasn't just about a lone predator hunting for honor anymore. It was multiple Yautja identifying Earth as a fertile battlefield, full of worthy prey, and that terrified him. That one day the hunt would no longer be a sport, but the beginning of a full-scale invasion. This is where Royce comes in. Although his fate was left unresolved after separating from Isabelle, some fans believe that after escaping the game-preserved planet and reaching one of the main Yautja worlds, he discovered that the predators were split into factions. On one side were those who still followed the honor code, and on the other, a more aggressive group seeking to evolve the hunt into something larger and more violent. According to this theory, Royce may have made a pact with a rebel faction of Yautja who were against the idea of an invasion, agreeing to secretly send advanced tech to Earth to help prepare humanity for what was coming. That would make the fugitive Predator and the delivery of the Predator killer suit part of this plan. Of course, with the recent changes to the franchise and new films on the horizon, this theory could be rendered non-canon or rewritten altogether. Still, it's one of those fan ideas that, while unofficial, helps fill in narrative gaps left behind by the movies. Maybe in the future, through new video games, comics, or upcoming films, we'll get more clues about what really happened to Royce, and whether, as some believe, he was the one who sent that armor. And with that, we reach the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. See you in the next one. Hey, don't go just yet. If you enjoyed this video, I've got another one I think you'll love. Check it out.